Vision 2030. It fucks the fundamentalists, but just with the tip. Promise, babe. Everything is the same, but sexier. Music, you can. Cinema, you can. Driving and being a woman, you kind of can. It's a 360 no scope into modernity, motherfucker.
Concerning this project, Bin Salman will let nobody tell him he's wrong, because it's impossible that he is. You know why?
Because in front of one of his many mansions, he just received a fragile label Amazon package. In this package lies his ego, represented by this jar. Fuck off, you jar!
I could go further and explain in detail what Plan 2030 is, but I won't. I won't because I don't want to. Listen, this project is simple. Modernize Saudi Arabian economy to get out of the fossil fuel money dependency and just be a little tiny less psychopathic. Modernity with Saudi Arabian characteristics. Ooh, woman.
Bin Salman has only one wife, which may sound like a weird brag when we put it like this.
But his grandfather is known to have espoused 135 virgins, and no, I'm not one of them. He had between 22 and 32 wives, slave and concubines not included, to Mark.
This same grandfather was the one who reunificated the kingdom in 1932. And he wasn't really an organized man, since he led to his successors absolutely no instruction for succession, because, you know, he had 135 plus things to do.
So, how women are perceived today in Saudi Arabia? For all incels here, don't worry, they are still considered objects, but objects with a little more rights. For example, and like what's been said previously in the video, they can now drive a car alone. Furthermore, they are able to work in almost all sectors of the society, including non-combat role and the military. Another breakthrough for our favorite talking objects, women, is that they have recently the right to practice intense physical exercises or sports which were previously prohibited because it could damage the hymen. Okay. It would be nice and Walt Disney to say that this trend represents an inevitable march towards progress and democratization because these two pillars of enlightenment are inherent to the human being. The thing is, I was not shaken as a baby, so I tend to not believe these things. In fact,
all of these small progresses came from the same motivation. Money. But I hear you already.
Why giving a couple of rights to proper women is good for money?
Well, let me introduce you to active working population.
In a nutshell, since women represent 42% of the population of Saudi Arabia, completely preventing them from working would mean losing 42% of your productive and intellectual potential because, in case some of you forgot, women have brains. Let's talk about some things that can make the game Kenshi look like a playful, performative documentary of the Arabian Peninsula as a whole.
More precisely, slavery and torture.
Before talking about modern slavery, let's define it using the United Nations definition. Modern slavery is an umbrella term covering practices such as forced labor, debt bondage, forced marriage, and human trafficking. Essentially, it refers to a situation of exploitation that a person cannot refuse or leave because of threats, violence, coercion, deception, and or abuse of power. I'll throw some number cause it make me feel like a real smart scientific. Ooh. 21.3 is the prevalence of modern slavery for 1,000 people in Saudi Arabia. 740,000 is the estimated people living in modern slavery in Saudi Arabia. 49% is the score of the country for its fight against this phenomenon. 0 is the number of people who love me. The migrant population of Saudi Arabia is tied to a system called kafala. In short, workers are tied to a mass employer. This system gives the employer the opportunity to blackmail and or torment the migrant with physical, mental, and sexual abuse, excessive hours, withholding wages, passport retention, and denial of food. For example, some workers had their passport confiscated once they arrived in Saudi Arabia. You would think that this was enough bad shit right there. But there's more. A 2019 investigation found that migrant domestic workers in Saudi Arabia were bought and sold via Instagram and other social media applications.
Imagine being bought by a 15 years old influencer on Instagram. I would die the first day from the cringe it put me through, than from the abuse.
Since a tragedy never weighed another, let's talk about sexual exploitation. Some reports found that there were Saudi citizens temporarily marrying children abroad and abandoning them once they were done.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
With a practice like that, it's easy to see what effects systemic sexual repression can have on a large population. Like, they feel the need to marry their victim spouse with Saudi characteristics before, consume the marriage. These forced marriages are not done only abroad, since in 2017, 16,000 people were married before 18 years old. Not only that, later in their life, these women started to be victims of the legal system as well, due to the fact that they could not cancel their marriage. Why? You may ask. Don't worry, there is an explanation. Because of the high burden of proof to prove that they did not consent to the marriage.
Let me try to help these Saudi legal scholars. A sufficient proof that she did not consent to the marriage is her age.
How can we blame them? Their own prophet married a child and then consumed the wedding when she was 9 years old. There is people that defend this by saying she was mature for her age. It's not their fault too. Maybe all these cousins' unions for generations made some of their brains smooth as butter, inbred if you will. And the Walk Free organization research paper, they proposed 5 recommendations to help erase slavery in Saudi Arabia.
With all the knowledge I accumulated doing this video, and because I'm something of an intellectual myself, I could come up with 3 recommendations for Saudi Arabia. Recommendation number 1. Slavery, sexual exploitation. Just don't. Recommendation. Oh, I think this one was enough.
Oh baby, let's talk about torture. Since Saudi Arabia is, well, it is what it is, it doesn't have a formal constitution or a formal criminal code. Since it's an absolute monarchy, all the authority belongs to the king and the Saud family. So I just want to be clear that whenever they want, the authority, so the king, can stop these practices.
But as a prominent royal family member said, where would be the fun in that? Good point. Yeah. End of the video.
Torture in Saudi Arabia is used across several different government organizations. The Bureau of Investigation and Public Prosecution, the General Intelligence, the Commission for the Promotion of Virtue and the Protection of Vice, as well as a special squad controlled by Salman directly. This thing is like the judiciary system in Western states. It prosecutes people that violate the law. Like in the Western countries, this branch of the state absolutely love a good confession.
But in Saudi Arabia, confession is like child marriage. It is forced upon you by old perverts.
I have to give merit where merit is due though. This justice system has an interesting feature where it writes your confession just for you. You don't even need a monthly subscription. However, you can't read it. And whatever under which condition you signed it, like for example with the help of waterboarding or electric shock, the judge at the trial will dismiss any attempt to contest this said confession. What a great deal, I guess.
Imagine being a prosecutor in this shithole. Easiest job in the world. You just wait for that loser to lose a teeth or a limb, wait for the confession, and bam! Case closed. You won.
First, I want to say that the name of this government organization is quite ironic since the people working for this Wish.com version of the CIA probably do not own intelligence in general. Secondly, its own purpose is obsolete. In the ALQST text, it is said that detainees are kept outside of the protection of the law. I mean, yeah, like in every country intel organization, but like,
which law are they kept outside from? You already have no protection of torture under the law. So let me get this straight. If you are arrested by this organization, you have 2 times 0 rights.
okay, still no rights anyway, you wheelchaired breadcrumb sniffer. Whatever, you get the gist. It's an intel organization that torture people. Next. The official name of the religious police is the Commission for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice, or, more simply, Incels Fucks. By the name, you probably guessed it, they go around minding the business of everybody except theirs.
See it as a wandering priest that can follow you around or knock at your door, but instead of talking to you about their Lord and Savior, Jesus, they kidnap you, beat the shit out of you in an unknown attic, all the while telling you how anymore a piece of shit you are.
Why be the king if you cannot partake personally in the fun? And oh, fun they have, since there's been reports of people imprisoned in makeshift wooden cell in the literal basement of a royal palace. This VIP obscenity was personally run by a South family member and another member of the king's staff, whatever his name, they are all the same. They like torture so bad that they even exported their hobby in Turkey. Now, who, how, when, and why, you may ask? We will answer all of these questions. Who? Jamal Khashoggi, a prominent dissident Saudi journalist. How? Being lured in a Saudi consulate in Istanbul. When? On the 2nd of October 2018.
Why? To enjoy their hobby, of course. But their hobby is not scrapbooking. It's dismembering people.
But don't worry, guys. He told us it did not come from him.
I don't believe
so
you.
they lured him into the consulate, ordered him to come back in Saudi Arabia, probably in their psycho creepy basement, but Jamal refused. Of course. The pain giver enjoyers then beat him up and started to torture him in a room by cutting his fingers. Then they started dismembering his body. The most fucked up thing about this event is that investigation could not tell if the dismembering was before or after Jamal's death. How deranged can you be?
In the ALQST text cited earlier, they highlights solutions for all these tortures, oopsies, of Saudi Arabia. This time, I will give 2 real recommendations, and I'll be more precise than with the sexual exploitation and slavery one. So there we go. Recommendation number 1. Just stop it. Get some help, you degenerate in fuck. Before the conclusion, let's answer the 3rd question, which was why your dad left you when you were 8 years old. It's because he doesn't love you.
Hey, congrats! You reached the end of the video. Probably the only thing you ever finished in your life. Now don't like, don't subscribe, and fuck off!